Well, having some time to digest the playoff rankings and most importantly, the statement that Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, put out after the playoff rankings this week, I'm frustrated. There's got to be more defense of BYU and BYU's resume right now for the sake of the Big 12. This is not just about BYU. For the sake of the Big 12, I want to see Brett Yormark go Greg Sankey right now, an all-out offensive on where the Big 12 should be in the college football playoff rankings. Welcome in. I am John Kurtz, host of Open for Business, Planet Earth's best Big 12 podcast. Thank you for joining me. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel as you enter in tonight, and make sure you are subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. If you are not, ofbnews.com to get signed up there. This is going to be a short live show since I did so much on Tuesday, and I got to run to some K-State basketball at T-Mobile Center in Kansas City tonight. Just thought I'd pop in with one main take here for you surrounding BYU, the playoff rankings, the Cougars' resume compared to Oregon and Notre Dame, and the lack of anything being said right now by the Big 12 as far as that is concerned. Can also run through the Big 12 games coming up this weekend. If you have something that you want to talk about, you can fill up the chat. I see all of you that are there so far. Hello. Click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit a super chat. That will guarantee that you make it on. Appreciate it if you do that. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo to leave me a question or comment there. I know I have a Venmo comment to get to. I will do that in just a moment. But let's start with this, okay? BYU, as you guys know, ranked 11th in the college football playoff rankings. That is up a spot. BYU, or rather Utah, was up a spot to 12. Texas Tech up there at 5. So you have 3 teams in the top 12. And honestly, had you told me at the beginning of the year, the Big 12 will have 3 teams in the top 12 on November, because it would have been 18th when the rankings came out, I would have been pretty happy. So from that standpoint, I guess I can understand why Brett Yormark would release a statement lauding the committee and the work that the Big 12 has done to get there. But when you take into account, hey, you're going to need to be in the top 10 to get an at-large spot here. If you want 2 teams in, you're going to have somebody in that top 10 by the time Selection Sunday rolls around, because of the ACC and Group of 5 situation. And then you lump in, hey, look at those teams 8, 9, and 10 in front of BYU and start comparing the resumes, then I get very frustrated with this. Okay, I think a part of Brett Yormark's statement was also about the fact that you had 5 teams total in because Arizona State and Houston slipped in the back door at 23 and 25, and nothing against those 2. I think that's all great, but that doesn't really matter in the overall significance of what you're trying to do. So, okay, John, what was the statement that you're talking about from Brett Yormark? Here it is. Conference made sure to send this out via email. They also sent it out on social media. It says, I'm thrilled to see the Big 12 Conference getting the respect it deserves. I said at Big 12 Media Days in July that we would earn it on the field, and we continue to do that. And okay, well, I'm not exactly disputing here that they are earning some things on the field. What I would dispute about this is, like, what have you earned? You've earned being in the top 12, but you certainly have not earned a likely at-large berth in the playoff, which is really what this is about. If not that, then I suppose getting a 4th team in, or getting into the top 4, rather, getting Texas Tech into the top 4 if you can get a bye. That would be another thing that would definitely be an upgrade in terms of respect. So this is what I'm frustrated with. Instead of a statement, I think a lot of folks that are associated with BYU were like hoping for, or Utah perhaps, hoping for, expecting some kind of statement that was more like, hey, we deserve to be higher than where we are. The Big 12 and BYU specifically deserves more respect as a team that should be in front of Oregon and or Notre Dame. I've already talked about the Notre Dame thing. I did that a couple of weeks ago. I guess at this point I had just been resigned to the fact that the Big 12 was going to be Utah, BYU were going to be behind Notre Dame. But man, I didn't even realize I hadn't done a close enough look at Oregon on this too. And shout out to BYU Sports Nation for this graphic that I'm about to show you. Look at this. Okay, so BYU sitting there at 11. I'm not going to, honestly, even though Alabama has an extra loss, I'm not going to complain about Alabama because of the wins that they have. I feel Alabama has proven enough with the wins that they have. You look at the strength of schedule, you look at the strength of record, but Man, strength of record, by the way, one of the things the SEC really wanted to push, and one of the things the SEC really wanted the committee to take into account this year. And BYU has a better strength of record than Oregon, 6 versus 7. They have a better strength of schedule, 27 v 31. It's even more decidedly in BYU's favor when you compare it to Notre Dame, 6 versus 12, 27 versus 29. And look, Notre Dame's got an extra loss, and they have a very similar best win. Notre Dame's best win is number 13, Miami. BYU's best win is number 12, Utah. Oregon's best win is anybody? Bueller? Unranked Iowa, probably. Now, Oregon is going to play USC this weekend. It will be very interesting to see what happens if Oregon loses that game. If they win it, then okay, suddenly they do have a best win. I have said before, I do give Oregon more credit for the Penn State game than what it looks like right now. I will stand by that. That was Penn State still playing full bore at that time, at that point in the season. But it has lost a little bit of its luster, right, by this point. And when you take everything into account, BYU has a win over the number 12 team in the country. Oregon at this point, their best win was an unranked Iowa team. If they were to lose to USC, I mean, they better not still be in front of BYU. And right now, I think there's a very legitimate argument that BYU with the same record, a better overall win, slightly better strength of schedule, slightly better strength of record, should be ahead of Oregon. Certainly not 4 spots behind Oregon is the crazy part of that. 4 spots behind them. Okay, now I saw the comment earlier. Let me see if I can pull that up. The comment earlier from Gage, let's be real, John. Oregon beats BYU by a minimum of 2 TDs. First of all, I'm not sure. Would BYU lose by 2 TDs at Iowa? You know, when Oregon is needing a miraculous, I mean, it was a great pass, but they need an incredible, huge play late in the game just to win that game in Iowa City. Like, I don't really think that's a fair statement. They got handled pretty well by Indiana at home. I don't think this is really that type of an Oregon team. But the point that I'm trying to make here with I wish Brett Yormark would be doing more campaigning and fighting is that you should be doing that for this conference. It doesn't really ultimately matter whether your argument is totally unassailable. There is an argument there. There is a legitimate argument to be made. And when the SEC has this, when they have any sort of little opening, right, there's a bit of an argument there to be made for one of their schools to be in the playoff field. They go all in. Like, you see it everywhere. They are so coordinated. They are great. I feel like they're as good as politicians, like political parties, whatever, as good as anybody at creating an organized offensive to go fight for their school. Greg Sankey obviously did it this offseason, proposing all these, new metrics and stuff like strength of record that he wanted to be used more. But it's even beyond that. It's Lane Kiffin will be out there tweeting about it. You'll have other coaches talking about it at their press conferences. Steve Sarkisian has already talked at press conferences this year about, well, the SEC should be getting even more than we already have. Paul Feinbaum, of course, who has a massive platform, is going to go out there and say ridiculous things like, oh, Georgia Tech would be, they're 9-1. They would be 1-9 if they played in the SEC, right? I mean, that's not like a credible argument or thing to say, but he'll go say it on national platforms because that's what the SEC does. They fight. They dig in and fight for their league, right? Then you have, like Brandon Walker, popular host there this week. I talked about his tweet a little bit earlier that was, would anybody be opposed to just the 10 best teams from the SEC and Big Ten plus Texas Tech and Notre Dame and get rid of the G5 and ACC? Like, they have all these people making these arguments for them, and Sankey sets the tone on that. And it just falls a little flat to me when the Big 12's response is, hey, we're proud of this. I mean, it screams a little bit participation trophy-ish to me. Like, hey, we're just happy to be here. We're happy to be included in the top 12, man. That's awesome. That's great. Well, the top 12 doesn't mean anything because it's the top 10 here in this scenario that you need to be in to get where you want to go. And I've already outlined, you're kind of trapped on both sides. It's unlikely. Oregon may lose. All right, so we'll see what happens with that. But it is unlikely. And even if Oregon loses, USC could still jump up in front of you. You got to worry about that. And that's what I mean by trapped on both sides. Alabama would have to lose to Auburn to fall below you. Oklahoma would have to lose to third-string quarterback Mizzou, or lame duck interim head coach LSU, which is probably not going to happen. And Notre Dame has the easiest path of all with Syracuse and Stanford. Probably not happening. USC could jump you from the back. Miami could jump you from the back. They've moved up 5 spots for beating nobody the last 2 weeks. Committee seems eager to shoot them up in front of you. What happens if they go out and beat Pitt on the road in the last week of the regular season? So you're not really in a great spot. I was disappointed to see that response, and I just, Brett Yormark, this seems like where he would excel. This seems like where he would be really good, is coming up with a strategy to get everybody together, whether it's influencers, media members, head coaches. Like, get these guys talking about things. Joey McGuire showed he wasn't afraid to go at Notre Dame at a press conference earlier this season, which really drew the ire of Notre Dame fans big time. And that, I thought, one, took some real guts. It was not an unassailable position. Like, that was an argument you could definitely argue back against that, and Notre Dame fans did. But he had the courage to go do it. And if you come back and say, one of the things I anticipate I would hear about this is just like, hey, what difference is it really going to make, John? This seems like a fool's errand. The SEC has the big megaphones. What is it truly going to matter? And I would just say, well, what I know is that if you don't do anything and try and stick up for yourself and fight for the league, nothing's going to happen. So you might as well try. And I think a lot of people in July of 2021 had a pretty defeatist attitude when it came to the Big 12 and said, what can you actually do? What's going to happen here? Your league is screwed. And the Big 12 dug in its heels and fought, and it has now survived and outlasted the Pac-12. So fighting has been the way to go here. The only thing I can think of is, like, is there some 4D chess here from Brett Yormark where he's thinking, hey, the Big Ten has floated this idea of 4 automatic bids for each Power 4 conference. We need the SEC to get on board if that's going to happen. We already know when Brett Yormark answered my question at Basketball Media Days, he's on board with that idea. He will talk about that playoff format. And if he's thinking, hey, that's our best scenario and I need the SEC on board, and if I start really complaining about all this right now and raising a big fuss, then maybe that makes it less likely that the SEC would get on board with the 4 auto bids. I don't know. I guess I hope that there's something to that. There's some kind of 4D chess going on here that I'm missing, but I think the conference should dig in. I wrote this in my Open for Business Big 12 newsletter that just came out today, by the way, ofbnews.com to subscribe to that. But WWGSD, man, what would Greg Sankey do in this scenario? Love him or hate him, Greg Sankey is the most powerful person in college athletics at this point. So what would he do? He would dig in. His coaches would be chatting. His coaches would be tweeting. His media guys would be falling in line and making all the arguments, right? Like, he would be out there doing interviews. That's like, can we, and maybe the answer is they've tried and the answer's been no, but can we get Brett Yormark on College Game Day talking about this? Can we get Brett Yormark on the Tuesday night show talking about this, defending his team? Like, if BYU goes out and wins this week at Cincinnati, all they've got left is the game against UCF. Have Brett Yormark go out there and do the stump speech for BYU, bring up those points. Yormark's a really sharp guy. He's very good if you were to put him on camera and tell him to make these points. Do that. I feel like, I know I've told you guys, like, Barstool isn't really my thing, but Dave Portnoy has delivered the most impassioned argument that I have seen in favor of BYU this week. And by the way, hammer that. Use that. Okay? Continue to go to that. But at the same time, you need to be doing some of that too. So I just wish there were more of that. And I think this is not just, I know the headline obviously right now is BYU. Utah, I just think it's harder. I'm not trying to leave Utah out. I just think it's harder to make that argument credibly for Utah. In fact, look, I think that is, if you want to look at one place and say the Big 12 has gotten an overdose of respect, it's probably for Utah. Just because a team with 2 losses what is Utah's best win, right? That's a tough conversation to have. I don't think you want to have it. You want to say, well, their 2 losses are to a couple of top 11 teams, and they beat everybody by 30 outside of that. That's the argument. But that's, I feel like, a healthy amount of respect for Utah where they are sitting just outside the top 10. So that's why I don't really make this argument so much for Utah here. But the BYU numbers are staggering. If you look at those numbers, like that is enough there to make a case. That's giving you, if this were like when you're back in like debate class back in high school or something, debate and forensic, like you draw the card and you get this as your argument. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I can make this case. I can definitely make this case. People in SEC and Big Ten country will come back at you and say, well, eye test and efficiency numbers and all that. Like, okay, that's fine. There's a give and take here. There's a push and pull. They're going to make those arguments really strongly. You got to be the one to come out there and be leading the charge and pushing that argument on your side. Even if it's not something that's going to work out this year, lay some groundwork. Keep fighting, keep pushing back. That's kind of been the mantra of this conference. And eventually, it has been very helpful for this league, even in the face of what looked like general hopelessness. So that would be my message on this front. Obviously, I have to take it on myself to do some of it too, because I didn't react quite as strongly just off the rip on Tuesday night in the immediate aftermath of those rankings. And part of that is just because the Sam Levitt story was really the big story occupying a lot of my my brain power that day. But it's been frustrating. It's been frustrating to sit and think about this for a while. So, okay. With that being said, let me pop into, I know I had a Venmo super chat to get to. Click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit one if you're in the chat right now. But if you're not watching live, John-Kurtz-4 is how you can do that as well. I think I have 2, actually. I don't think I got to Bob. Okay, yeah, I've got 2. All right, Bob. Shout out to my guy, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you, my friend. Bob says, can the Big 12 get 12 teams bowl eligible? Well, bowls are going the way of the NIT. Every bit of success helps with ensuring that the Big 12 stays ahead of the ACC. Let's go look at what we got. This is one of those things. I mean, you're right, Bob. I don't pay too much attention to bowls anymore, so I haven't gone through the math on this. I mean, so right now you already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you have 3 teams with 5 wins. So Kansas, Baylor, K-State. I will tell you, I would anticipate K-State is probably going to get bowl eligible because they play Colorado at home next week. Though K-State is very beaten down and missing a number of its best players, just a slew of its best players right now. But they should be able to beat Colorado at home, you would think. Baylor at Arizona and against Houston, that's tough. I don't know. I would not predict Baylor to get bowl eligible. In fact, I would predict them to lose both of those games, but it's not out of the question they could win. And then Kansas, it's also, Kansas better win this weekend. I know, shout out to Allen. I know Allen would tell us that they're going to beat Utah next week at home to spoil everything the Utes are playing for. But at Iowa State this weekend is the much better chance of it. So, based on all this, I set the over-under at like 10.5. I think you're probably looking at like 10.5 bowl-eligible teams there with a shot at getting to 12, but I don't think that would probably happen. Thank you, though, Bob, for your support. Brian asks, BYU fan with a playoff idea. What if auto bids from conferences were determined by non-conference wins? This makes the first 3 weeks more exciting, and SEC and Big Ten would schedule more games with us and stop playing cupcakes. Well, hey, I think it's a great idea, Brian. The problem is it just won't happen because they're not going to want, like, TV. All these places want specific guarantees of how many teams are going to. They don't want to leave all that up to chance. They have all the power right now, so there's no incentive for them to say, hey, we'll do something that will actually force us to go play more Big 12 teams or ACC teams or whatever. They've got the deck is stacked for them right now, so they're not going to give up those advantages unless you were ever to have some college football commissioner that would, try and push something like that on them. But it would be a fun idea for sure. I think there are a lot of good and cool things that could happen if we had some actual central strong leadership that was looking out for the greater good of the sport and not just the Big Ten or the SEC. But unfortunately, that is the position we are in. So, Brian, thank you. I appreciate it, my friend. Okay, let's run through, before I pop out here, let's run through the Big 12 games this weekend. Like and subscribe, everybody who is here. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter as well. Well, we have the BYU game, which is, for all intents and purposes for the Big 12 this weekend. That is the most important matchup because you're looking at this like, hey, if BYU wins, it is in all overwhelming likelihood going to be BYU Texas Tech rematch in the Big 12 championship game. And then you can start thinking about, hey, what does BYU need to do to still have a chance at an at-large? Like, how competitive do they have to make it in that game? And or if BYU wins, then does Texas Tech stay in the top 12 and get you 2 bids? If BYU loses, then it's like you're open to a world of possibilities because then all the 2-loss teams come back into the picture. Arizona State, if they beat Colorado, Cincinnati, obviously, if they win that game, Houston, if they beat TCU, Utah, if they beat K-State, like suddenly we're all going to be playing with that generator online next week to try and see what the possibilities are for a conference championship game if BYU were to lose this. It really feels to me, Texas Tech game notwithstanding, like BYU has been getting stronger toward the end of the year, which I know sounds crazy because that game, I mean, they ran 7 plays in Texas Tech territory, right? Like the offense just got mowed down so much. But that game was really impressive against TCU. And we are a long ways. I know people will point back to, hey, the West Virginia and Colorado games, and even like I see people talking about the Arizona game going into double overtime. And it's like, yeah, okay, like I do understand that, but that's one that's been a while. Since then, they beat Utah and they were up double digits on Utah in the fourth quarter. A chance to really like totally put them away and make that a 17-point game. They were 1 play away from doing that. They beat Iowa State by 14 on the road, and then they just decleated TCU by 30. That's what they've been really the last month outside of going to play Texas Tech, who's just been impossible for anybody. And then if we go back one more game, I mean, how has that Arizona game aged? It's aged very well with Arizona sitting here now at 7-3. So I feel like they just continue to get better, and so much of it is about what has happened with Bear Bachmeier. He's such a good player at this point, and he continues to grow, and he's got a really that trend line ascends upward very fast for him because he's so young. There's a lot of room to grow, more so than if you had just a more veteran quarterback that we're playing right now. So I think that's a really important piece of that for BYU. So I'm anticipating BYU is not going to have too much trouble in this, but hey, Vegas, I mean, it's pegged by the betting markets as a 2.5-point spread toward BYU. So they still do anticipate this game being pretty close. Where do we want to go next? I mean, I already told you K-State, Utah. Utah needs to win to keep that at-large thing going. I think there's no way K-State covers this to be within 17. I don't know how K-State scores. Like no Jace Brown or Dylan Edwards. I mean, there's just zero explosiveness on that offense. They might be getting Jaron Bradley back this week. JB Bradley, he can make some plays. Jerron Tibbs can make some plays, but they're not like speedy playmakers. I don't know who's taking the top off the defense or really threatening anybody at all. I mean, I think this K-State might not score 10 points in this game. So I highly doubt Utah is going to have much difficulty there. Houston TCU feels like that game probably means way more to Houston, even if they don't make the Big 12 championship, which they are still technically alive with the 2 losses. What does TCU have to play for? Houston can still be playing for a 10-win season and wins over TCU and Baylor, like old Southwest Conference rivals. I think there's a lot of meat on that bone for Houston left, and for TCU, I'm just struggling to find the reasons why they would really care very much or be very up for this game. So sad state of affairs for where the Frogs are at, but that is kind of how I see that. Arizona, it's sort of the same situation with Arizona and Baylor. Not that Arizona's playing for the Big 12 title, but Arizona winning 9 games, it would be only the second time it's happened in the last decade. That's a meaningful thing to this program, especially where they came from last year. Baylor, I mean, really at this point, yeah, I guess you're fighting for a bowl, but you're probably like just trying to do whatever you can to keep your coach around, which I don't know if that's going to matter anyway. That ship may have already sailed, depending on, well, the leadership situation. Obviously, it's a whole other enchilada at Baylor. So I don't know what's going to happen with Aranda, but it would behoove him to win that game for sure. It's interesting, isn't it, that Arizona State only a 7.5 point favorite at Colorado? I have to wonder if some of that is about worry about Arizona State's distractions this week. You know, I mean, Kenny Dillingham really brushed that off when he was asked about it, but that's a lot, right? You got the big Sam Levitt story. Kenny Dillingham this week turned into the betting favorite to be the next head coach at LSU. You know, regardless of how legit you think that is, that kicks in another round of distractions and questions and things you have to think about and deal with. Yeah, Colorado was competitive, I suppose, last time out against West Virginia. So I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing Arizona State not kind of running away with that game from Colorado. Colorado's just been so bad for the last month and a half of the season. Rick George, the now outgoing athletic director there, though, did say he's back in Coach Prime. He's sticking behind his guy. Not worried about that at all. KU Iowa State honestly should be a really fun and intriguing game. The stakes are not really there outside of Kansas trying to get bowl eligible, which, still should mean at least something to that program. But I know the general fan sentiment there seems to be that they've already moved past caring about that too much. And then what about then we got Oklahoma State at UCF. UCF, you should win that game. Let's put it that way. You should win that game. Oklahoma State, if you want to take the non-cynical view of this, which I obviously, being someone close to the K-State program, have the cynical view on it. If you want to take the non-cynical view of this whole situation, it would be that Oklahoma State played arguably its best game of the season last week, within 8 of K-State, losing only 14-6, and only lost because they had just a comedy of errors when it came to turning over the football. And maybe if Doug Meacham doesn't call a really ill-advised trick play, that turns into a win, or at least a game that's going to overtime or is very, very close down to the wire against K-State. So there you have it. Quick live show for you guys tonight. I have to run, but I do appreciate everybody who showed up and hung out. And I know it was much earlier than usual. So again, if you are watching this played back, if you have anything for me, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, leave me a question or comment there. If you missed out, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to that Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, ofbnews.com to get subscribed. You can also click the link in the description of this video. Oh, I'm sorry. I see a super chat. I saw it. Thank you. Starter 179. Okay. Super chat. Starter 179. Can we discuss Yormark's comments that he's happy with the playoff rankings? Does he not realize? Yeah, that was Starter 179. I will direct you back to the beginning of this video as soon as I'm done. That was the whole crux of the issue on the video. I am frustrated to not see more fight out of him. I guess to give you a quick synopsis here, I'm frustrated to not see more fight out of him. I think he should be doing exactly what Sankey is doing. Fight back as much as you can. If it doesn't work now, you may lay some groundwork where it helps eventually. You can't just let yourself get trampled and walked over with this. BYU certainly has a resume that is comparable. I mean, you can absolutely make the case that they've got a better resume than Oregon. You can make the case that they have a better resume than Notre Dame. I wish Yormark would be doing more of this. My only thought is there some sort of 4D chess he's making a play for getting the SEC to agree to the 4 auto bids for everybody in a 2014 playoff, and thinks pushing too much now would upset that apple cart? I don't know. That's about all I can come up with. And unless maybe I just haven't heard this news, but you do also have to keep in mind they had Clark Williams there as the director of comms for the conference, who did an awesome job, and he left to go to SMU and left within the last month. So they're like in between having a real leader in front of all the communications efforts. So that could be something going on there too. I don't know too much about the dynamics behind the scenes on that front. So just some thoughts. Starter 179. Thank you. Okay. Let's go ahead and call it. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you very much. It's been great chatting. I hope you have a great rest of your evening and enjoy the college football weekend. I should be talking to you guys on Saturday. Take care.